If you've ever wanted to give portrait photography a shot, it's important to have the right gear. As a portrait photographer, here is some gear that I use at every single shoot, as well as my secret tool to get those dreamy portraits. Everything will be linked in the description down below if you want to check any of the gear out for yourself. The nice thing about portrait photography is that you don't need a ton of gear to start. The most important thing about a portrait is the person you're photographing. So as long as you can make them look good, that's all that matters. So let's talk about the basics, your camera. I personally use a Sony a7 IV for the majority of my portraits, and it has produced some of my best work. In terms of specs, I think if you can find a camera that has over 24 megapixels, can shoot at least 14-bit uncompressed RAW, has a good, fast, and reliable autofocusing system, that's all you really need. I say at least 24 megapixels because I find when I'm shooting my portraits, I tend to crop in a lot, but also skin retouch. If you plan to retouch any of your portraits, you'll want a camera that can capture a super high resolution image that will allow you to zoom in and work with all of that skin texture. Now, I'm not talking about buying a $10,000 Fujifilm GFX 100 II, but seriously, look at the detail from this 102 megapixel photo. Now, when looking for a camera, you also want to keep in mind lenses. I'd love to know what lens and camera combo you're rocking, so let me know down in the comments. But cameras like my Sony have a wide range of lenses to choose from. So I opt for lenses like my Sigma 35mm f1.4 because it is part of Sigma's art series, which is known for its incredible quality and sharpness. Now, if you're rocking a kit lens, that's totally fine for when you're starting out, but because most kit lenses usually have a variable aperture, you're not gonna get the best bokeh or background separation out of these lenses. And if you don't know what I mean, right behind me where you see that it is blurred out, if I get a little bit closer, you can see that it's even more blurred out, or if I put a lens in front of me, you can see that everything behind is blurred out. That's what background separation is, and the faster the aperture, the more background separation you're gonna get. Now, if all you have to spend is enough for one lens, then I recommend the Sigma 24-70 f2.8 because it's a great all-around lens for everything, including portraits. It's sharp, it has a constant fast aperture of f2.8, capable of giving you that creamy bokeh we all love. If you watched the behind the scenes to my portrait shoot in Miami last week, I actually used a Sigma 24-70 the entire shoot. However, if you want to get more serious into portraits, then I'd recommend looking into prime lenses. These are fixed lenses that don't zoom. They're typically sharper than zoom lenses and have faster apertures like f1.2 or like this lens f1.4, which not only allows more light in, but gives you even more bokeh and background separation than f2.8. So my go-to for portraits is a Sigma 35mm f1.4 because I like to capture a lot more environment around my subject. But if you like a tighter look, then lenses like a 50mm or an 85mm and up, or even like a 70-200 will do the trick. You also want to make sure you have extra batteries for your camera and extra SD cards in case something happens. I personally like using these SanDisk or ProGrade cards. For photos, you don't really need anything fancy, and honestly, these $30 cards from SanDisk will do the job. And obviously, you need a backpack to carry all these things, so I like to use a Nanook 30-liter NPVD bag. This bag is amazing. I've been using it for the past couple months, and I love it. A camera, lenses, a backpack, extra batteries, and SD cards is all you really need to get the job done. However, to step up your game and have more control over your shoot, here are some things worth looking into. A 5-in-1 reflector, a tool all photographers need. If you plan to shoot in natural light, sometimes you can't wait for that perfect golden hour, and you might have to shoot in that midday harsh sunlight. That's where the 5-in-1 reflector comes in. They have a bunch of use cases. You can use them as a reflector, as a negative fill or bounce, or you can take the sleeve completely off and use it to diffuse harsh lighting. They're fairly inexpensive, and I definitely recommend one. Now, if you want to get more into it, then something to look into is artificial lighting, like the light that I'm using to light myself right now, or that light back there. Having control over your lighting allows you to get different looks, but also get enough light to bring out all of that texture, detail, and quality out of your portrait. So personally, I have a few different lights, like the SmallRig RC220B that I'm using to light myself right now. It's a constant light. However, I also have this little video light, which I like to bring out if I want to add a splash of color. This comes with me all of the time. And I also have things like this Godox TT685 strobe. Lights like this Godox flash allows you to get more stylized with your portraits and get a different look, like these photos here. If you want to see how I created this flash film look, I made a video on it with a free preset, so go watch that video. These lights are going to get you great results when it comes to your portraits. However, lights can get pretty expensive, especially some of the bigger, more powerful strobes. So I recommend when booking studios, just find some that have lights available for you to use. Now I get asked all the time, how do I make my portraits look so dreamy? And that's where this comes in. This is a Tiffin Black Pro Mist quarter strength, and essentially it lowers the overall contrast and highlights in your shot, but also blooms the highlights, which creates this dreamy, glowing effect. It also helps smoothen skin, which is pretty cool. This filter is on my camera probably about 50% of the time. When I do a studio session where I care about getting all of that detail, I won't use it. One more thing, a Bluetooth speaker. I definitely think if you're just starting out, maybe you're not directing as much or there's some awkward moments of silence, having a speaker like this and letting the model put on some music will take away that awkward silence, but also allow the model to get more comfortable and in the groove. Any Bluetooth speaker will do. I'll link my recommendations down in the description. And lastly, something that I don't personally use that often when shooting portraits is a tripod. I wouldn't waste my money on a tripod if you're shooting portraits. I usually like moving around, capturing different angles, and so I don't use this tripod. The only time I will use this tripod is if I'm shooting in a studio and I know I want all the shots to be relatively the same, like when I was shooting photos for this brand. That's when I'll use a tripod, and the tripod I am using is the Ulanzi and Komen 0Y tripod. It is carbon fiber, it's lightweight, it's portable, and it does a job. But that's it. That's really everything you need for taking portraits. I've been shooting portraits for a few years now, and I've been able to produce some amazing portraits just using my camera, lens, and natural light. I hope that helps. Make sure to subscribe and leave a like. It really does help support the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.